Right, hi guys, it is Dan here, and you can actually see my face in the camera today because it is light after I've finished work for the first time this year. So that's good, and today we are going to be talking about, there we go, Darien by C.F. Iggulden. Now, fans of historical fiction might have heard of his alias, Conn Iggulden. He's one of the most popular historical fiction writers out there, one of the best-selling as well, and the reason he's using an alias is because this book is his first foray into fantasy writing, so that's quite exciting. So yeah, Darien is the first book in his Empire of Salt series, which currently has 2 books out, and I'm not exactly sure how many are planned. One review that I read mentioned that it was supposed to be a trilogy, but I've not actually found anything official to back up that statement, so whether it's true or not, I don't know. So yeah, a quick summary. All of the action takes place in and around the sort of squalid city of Darien, which is a remnant of the ancient Empire of Salt. And it's ruled by 12 families that use the king as kind of just a figurehead, like a powerless figurehead. And we follow 6 characters as they get caught up in an attempted coup by the general of Darien's elite troops, the Immortal Legion. And none of these characters have like any particular political power or influence, but they do have all kinds of special skills and abilities that help them to influence events, and you find out more about as the book goes on. So yeah, is it any good? Well, yeah, actually, I thought it was pretty good. It's not like a game-changing or anything like that, but for a first fantasy novel, I think it's a really solid effort, and there was definitely enough in there that I'm going to be keeping an eye out for the second book in the series. So yeah, I enjoyed Conn Iggulden's, or C.F. Iggulden's writing style. His descriptions are pretty brief, but they're very vivid, and his dialogue is like punchy and to the point. And that is also an element of the pacing as well, which is pretty quick, especially in the second half of the novel. The tone is pretty dark overall, I would say, and that is mirrored in his descriptions of the setting. You know, the city of Darien is pretty dystopian, and certainly a good depiction of an unfair and very hierarchical society. Now, I've seen some people compare this novel to some of Joe Abercrombie's writing, if you've read any of his stuff, and I think that's a pretty fair comparison. You know, Abercrombie writes very heavily character-driven fantasy with a dark tone, and that is definitely a decent description of this novel too. So I think if you like Joe Abercrombie, then this is definitely especially his first Law trilogy, then I think this is something that you might well be interested in as well. I thought the character work was very well done, very enjoyable, especially in the second part. You know, I was a bit concerned by the lack of agency that was shown by the main characters in the first part of the book. You know, it felt like they had no real control over events, and they were being swept along without being able to make any decisions for themselves, or at least any important decisions for themselves that were actually affecting the plot. But I thought that Iggulden rectified this in the second part, and also really gets some good character growth in there towards the end as well. You know, by the end, I pretty much enjoyed reading all of the characters, you know, whether they were major or minor. And it was a pretty satisfactory ending overall, and maybe a bit easy, but it tied up a lot of loose ends, which I like in the first novel of a series. You know, because if you decide not to go on with a book, then it's at least nice in the first novel of the series. If you're going to decide not to go on, you've got a whole story wrapped up there. Now, I will say that this is not a book that's particularly high on originality in the plot or in the world building. You know, this is a pretty typical fantasy setting. It's at the kind of technology level where they're just starting to have characters that have got guns. And the magic system is pretty basic. It's pretty much just that some people are born with a specific natural ability, and also there's like a bunch of relics from previous civilizations that they don't really know how to replicate now. So yeah, nothing particularly mind-blowing there or anything. But that does allow Iggulden more time to develop the characters rather than spend loads of time explaining like a massive, complicated world, and which is not really what he's going for in this novel anyway. You know, he was aiming for a heavily character-focused book. That's what he's come out with. So I'm not complaining too much. It's not really a complaint at all. It's just something to bear in mind. You know, if you like character-driven fantasy, then certainly go for this. If you're really heavy on world building and plot, then you know perhaps you're not going to enjoy this one as much. You know, overall, I didn't think that I think that he really achieves what he is aiming for in this. The one slight gripe that I would have, and it's a minor gripe, and it's partly down to his writing style, which is pretty brief and perfunctory, but it's just that the major set piece scenes, he did seem to sort of rush past them really quickly. They didn't get a lot of page time, so I don't necessarily think they had the impact that they could have done. But again, it's not a very plot-focused book. It is more about these characters coming to terms with the situation. So yeah, it's all a matter of taste, really. I personally would have liked slightly more page time for the major set pieces. Let's just say that. So yeah, Darien by C.F. Iggulden. I think this is a really solid fantasy novel. Good first book in the series. If you like character-driven fantasy, then absolutely give this a try, because yeah, I'm going to be looking out for the next book in the series. I think the next one's called Xiang. I guess it's just the names of different cities, so I don't know anything about it at all. But yeah, I'll be keeping my eye out, and maybe you should keep an eye out for this one. So yeah, bye for now.